Honestly, guys, that's actually a pretty good question. Now, admittedly, it might be a little insane to make a video on something that A, seems so mundane, and B, something that I've never really touched, but grasses are actually really interesting, and to understand why, we're going to start with some basic plant anatomy. Now, this is some really basic plant anatomy. You might be familiar about this, depending on where you're from. So, the roots collect water and nutrients, which is transported via the stem to the leaves, which, use capture light and, photosynthesis, make food and all that. And the flowers, not all plants have flowers, but the ones that do, they use them for reproduction. Each of these individual structures can generally get way more complex, but what you have to know is that a lot of plants follow this pretty basic format of well-defined organs. Now, the reason I'm showing you all this is because I want to compare this general structure to the grass I just picked out of my neighbor's front lawn. Now, this fuzzy brown stuff over here that I'm currently pointing at, those are the roots. They're really easy to identify because they're on the bottom and they're a significantly different color. Pretty fun stuff, pretty important stuff, but not particularly significant or unique. And it's autumn, so even if the grass did have flowers, it wouldn't show up. What is interesting about grasses, however, are their stems and leaves. So grass stems, which would be this rounded green thing over here, right here, I'm pointing at it. Grass stems are very specialized, even amongst the plant kingdom. In fact, they're so specialized they have their own special name, called culms, C-U-L-M-S. And what makes culms so special and different from other stems is that they're hollow. And this structural choice allows grass, at least at the stem, to bend really easily compared to other plants. It's this sole structural adaptation that allows grass to be so widespread to the point where they can be found almost anywhere on Earth. In a world of harsh winds, hurricanes, tornadoes, or even earthquakes, most plants would snap in half and very obviously die. However, the natural architectural brilliance of hollow stems allows grasses to resist the harshest of elements, a trait that we humans have actually made good use of, even to this day. Now, the second notable feature I wanted to put everybody's eyes on were these things to the sides of the stem. These are the leaves, or as you might know them, the blades of the grass. And these are interesting because of their anatomy, which I can't show you close up, but I can show you pictures. Plant leaves have veins or tubes that run across the leaf. Now, the shape that these veins take is called ventation, and it's a very important part in the evolutionary history of a plant. Now, all grasses have this thing called parallel ventation. It essentially means that their veins are structured in such a way such that they'll run parallel to the edges of a leaf. And the reason this is important is because it tells us that grasses are all monocots. Now, the definition of a monocot and the difference between monocots and dicots can honestly get their own video. What you have to know is that the fact that grasses are monocots can tell us a lot of things about the nature of grasses themselves. For one thing, grasses are actually a surprisingly new plant. In fact, the oldest grass fossils date back to roughly 65 million years ago, which is roughly right after the dinosaurs got genocided by a meteorite. Now, this seems like a long time ago, but in evolutionary timescales, this implies that grasses are amongst the newest of the plant species, and that a lot of animals actually predate them. Another thing that's very important to understand about grass leaves is that they're actually quite sharp. Grass leaves contain high amounts of silicon phytoliths, or microscopic silicon particles, which they actually collect from the soil. And this basically makes grass leaves incredibly sharp enough to actually cut the gums of some animals if they tried to eat them. And this substance, alongside cellulose, aka the thing that makes celery crunchy, makes it incredibly hard to digest grass. In fact, it's so hard to digest grass that you actually need 4 stomachs to even consider getting any nutritional value out of eating it. And since humans only have 1 stomach, this explains why we're not just eating grass willy-nilly. However, perhaps the biggest thing that prevents grass from becoming more than just biological fodder is the way they grow and develop. Most plants follow this pretty standard growth pattern by which they'll grow organs and they'll grow taller over time progressively. Grasses, however, follow this growth strategy. They'll grow up to a certain height, after which they'll actually start creating a new grass blade on one of its roots. And when that grass blade goes to the height limit, it will create a third grass blade, and so on and so on and so on. You can actually see this with my grass blade, how alongside a primary stem growing over here, connected to the roots is a secondary stem which grows off to the side. These secondary stems, if you will, are called daughter plants, or tillers, and they're all very reproductively capable. It means that if you cut or eat a single blade of grass, the grass is fully capable of producing new daughter plants from the roots. So the only way you can really kill grass is to kill it from the roots. That's everything you need to know about grass. Well, see you in the next upload. Or is it? Remember what I said earlier? That human beings don't just eat grass willy-nilly? Because it turns out, wheat is a monocot plant with hollow stems, large amounts of cellulose and silicon, and daughter plants growing at its roots. So is rice, corn, and 70% of the world's food supply. This brings me to a revelation so dastardly that it's good enough for me to break the 5-minute rule for it. All of us have touched grass. Next time our sauce, or if that's even your real name, you or your clever friends decide to make fun of me for sitting in my room all day for 24 hours with no social life, just know I haven't just been touching grass all my life. I've been eating it. It's quite good, wow. Costco pizza, did it get better?